Hi, thank you for joining me. My name is Mindy Mandell. From today, I'm going to start a series of videos on Plato's Timaeus. I'm not sure yet how many videos this will turn out to be, but just one or two really would not do justice to this dialogue, so we'll just take it as it goes and see how long it works out to be. Okay, so this first video, as you can see here, I'm calling it Providence. And the reason for this is because this is where Plato's describing the creation of the physical realm. And we're going to see that all of this is guided by goodness, and providence is what runs through it all. So that's really the key to understanding the Timaeus. Okay, getting into it here. First of all, I am using, for this series of videos, I'm using the Loeb Classical Series. And so our translator is Robert Bury. So we see here that Socrates had apparently given a talk the day before that was something like the dialogue Republic. It couldn't have been the exact same conversation since the people are different, but it must have been the same type of conversation. He gives a bit of a summary and it pretty much describes books 2 through 5. So if you've read The Republic, then this introduction will be much easier for you. But if you haven't, you don't really have to have. Of course, it helps, but it's not necessary. And there is that little bit of a summary. It may not make that much sense to a person who hasn't read The Republic. I'm not sure. But anyway, so Socrates, then here he says that the main part of the discourse I delivered yesterday, meaning the dialogue like The Republic, it was concerned with the kind of constitution which seemed to me likely to prove the best, and the character of its citizens. And in truth, Timaeus says that the polity you described was highly approved by us all. Okay, so Socrates in the Republic talked about, at least on the surface, the story was the kind of constitution that would be best for a state and how to educate the leaders of that state. And then he goes on to say this. He says, now in the next place, listen to what my feeling is with regard to the polity we've described. I may compare my feeling to something of this kind. Suppose, for instance, that on seeing beautiful creatures, whether they're works of art or they're actually alive but in repose, a man should be moved with desire to behold them in motion and vigorously engaged in some such exercise as seems suitable to their physique. Well, that is the very feeling I have regarding the state we have described. Okay, so he gave a theory, and now he wants to see it in action. And so here's where Critias comes in. And he tells a story that, a very famous one, of a long-lost place called Atlantis. Now, there is a bit of a summary here at the beginning. I'm not going to talk about it at this time, because once I finish the Timaeus, I am going to go on to the dialogue called Critias, which is where we are introduced to Atlantis. Okay, but he does give that summary, and then he says this. You have now heard, Socrates, in brief outline, the account given by the elder Critias, the speaker's grandfather, of what he heard from Solon. And when you were speaking yesterday about the state and the citizens that you were describing, I marveled as I called to mind the facts I'm now relating, reflecting what a strange piece of fortune it was that your description coincided so exactly, for the most part, with Solon's account. So we can already see some foreshadowing of the dialogue Critias, that it's going to be about philosopher kings, putting them in action. There is one line from his summary that I pulled out because it gives us some foreshadowing of what we're going to see here in this dialogue Timaeus. He says, with regard to wisdom, you perceive no doubt the law here, how much attention it has devoted from the very beginning to the cosmic order, by discovering all the effects which the divine causes produce upon human life, down to divination and the art of medicine, which aims at health, and by its mastery also of all the other subsidiary studies. What we're going to see here in the Timaeus is that reality unfolds through realms, but all of these realms are modeled after the intelligible realm. the things in themselves, intelligible intellect, if you will. They're called intelligible forms or ideas, or I call them absolute realities. This is the model for all of creation. And so people who live wisely live in recognition of this. And so everything from their divination all the way down to the way they deal with the health of the physical body, it all recognizes this similitude that runs through all. And as we're going to see today, this similitude is guided by goodness or providence. Okay, so here's the plan for the way they're going to carry on their discussions. So again, the day before, Socrates had given a very long talk, much like the Republic. And then here's what's going to go on today. He says, "Consider now, Socrates, the order of the feast that we have arranged, as we have arranged it. Seeing that Timaeus is our best astronomer and has made it his special task to learn about the nature of the universe, it seemed good to us that he should speak first, beginning with the origin of the cosmos and ending with the generation of mankind." So notice he's not talking about the origin of the intelligible realm. We're imagining that already exists, and now we're going on to a lower level, the origin of the physical realm. And that's what he means by cosmos. "After him I am to follow, taking over from him mankind, already as it were created by his speech, and taking over from you, Socrates, a select number of men superlatively well trained, the ones we called philosopher kings." Okay, so that's the plan. And so we're going to see the dialogue Timaeus, and then it's followed by the dialogue Critias. Okay, now we go on to Timaeus speaking. And from this point, it's pretty much just he's the only speaker. There's really no conversation at all. And he's going to talk about the unfolding of the physical world. He says, "Now, first of all, we must, in my judgment, make the following distinction. What is that which is existent always and has no becoming? And what is that which is becoming always and is never existent?" So what we're seeing here is this same basic structure that we've seen in some other dialogues as well, where we can imagine all of the realms of reality being split, if you will, into two, where you've got the world of being, or that which is always existent, and the world of generation, or the world that is always coming into existence. So we call it becoming because it's always going into and out of existence. Now, the one of these is apprehensible by thought with the aid of reasoning, or logos. And that would be this one right here, which is ever uniformly existent. So we use the logos, or that kind of reasoning, and we try to tap into those higher energies that we call noesis, that is represented by this word here. It is ever uniformly existent. But the other is an object of opinion with the aid of unreasoning sensation, since it becomes and perishes and is never really existent. Okay, so that's a pattern that we've seen in many other dialogues as well. And then he says again, "Everything which becomes must of necessity become owing to some cause. For without a cause, it is impossible for anything to attain becoming." Now, we've already seen in some other dialogues that for Platonists, even the intelligible realm must have a cause. But this dialogue is focusing solely on the realm of becoming. And so that's what he's focusing on here, that anything in this physical realm must have a cause. "But when the artificer of any object, in forming its shape and quality, keeps his gaze fixed on that which is uniform, using a model of this kind, well, that object, executed in this way, must of necessity be beautiful. But whenever he gazes at that which has come into existence and it uses a created model, the object thus executed is not beautiful." Why is he bringing in the idea of beauty? Because beauty is attached to the idea of the intelligible realm. In the Dialogue Symposium, for example, the experience of reality itself is called beauty itself. Okay, going on now, the whole heaven or cosmos. Pause again. Notice the word heaven here being used as synonymous with cosmos, which is the realm of generation or becoming. So for the Platonists, heaven is not the place where the good little boys and girls go after death. It's a description of, it's a word that describes the whole physical realm. Okay, now as for the whole heaven or cosmos, we must first investigate concerning it that primary question which has to be investigated at the outset in every case, namely, whether it has existed always, having no beginning of generation, or whether it has come into existence, having begun from some beginning. Okay, so things within the realm of generation are always coming into and going out of existence. But what about the realm itself? Has it come into existence? Does it have a beginning, or has it always been? He says that it has come into existence, for it is visible and tangible and possessed of a body. And all such things are sensible, and things sensible, being apprehensible by opinion with the aid of sensation, come into existence, as we saw, and are generated. And that which has come into existence must necessarily, as we say, have come into existence by reason of some cause. By the way, I want you to hold on to this idea of coming into existence, because once we talk about time, we're going to have a different look at this. But we'll just follow his reasoning at this point of the dialogue. All right, so it must have come into existence, and then the next step, it must have some cause. And so then we have this sort of structure, which I've used in past videos as well, that we're using this triangle to represent all the realms of reality, where the most unified point at the top here represents that intelligible realm, or what we call being, or the ever-existent. And then a reality unfolds through realms until we reach our physical world, the world of becoming or generation, in this dialogue using words like heaven or cosmos to describe it. Okay, after which of the models did the architect construct it? Was it after that which is self-identical and uniform, or after that which has come into existence? He goes on to say that now, if it so be that this cosmos is beautiful, and its constructor good, it is plain that he fixed his gaze on the eternal. But if otherwise, and this would be impious, his gaze was on that which has come into existence. But it is clear to everyone that his gaze was on the eternal, for the cosmos is the fairest or most beautiful of all that has come into existence, and he the best of all the causes. So here he's introducing the idea of goodness being what guides the creation of the universe. And we're going to see this coming in stronger as we go on. So having in this wise come into existence, it has been constructed after the pattern of that which is apprehensible by the logos and by phronesis, and is self-identical, or is abiding within itself. Okay, so we've seen the idea of logos many times, this reasoning, this intellectual pattern of looking at truth, way of looking at truth. And also we've seen phronesis, it's that energy, if you will, that develops in us and that we can cultivate as we go on with our practice. It's often in various places translated as wisdom or intelligence. And so it's through these means, the logos and phronesis, that we are able to apprehend that pattern. Again, if these premises be granted, it is wholly necessary that this cosmos should be a copy of something. So what he's telling us here is we have our creator or architect, what is often called the demiurgos. This would be Zeus in Greek mythology. So let's get Zeus here. What did you think he looked like? And he is focusing his gaze. It's fixed. Now, when an intellectual God has his gaze fixed on something, it means that he's never leaving that thought. And he's looking at that eternal model, and this is the intelligible forms or realities. And based on that, he creates our physical realm. And so the absolute realities, the intelligible realities, are the model, and this physical world is the copy. He goes on to say, and this is a curious little thing that he throws in here. Many people wonder why it's here, so I'm just going to say a few words about it. He says, as being is to becoming, so is truth to belief. Wherefore, Socrates, if in our treatment of a great host of matters regarding the gods and the generation of the universe, we prove unable to give accounts that are always in all respects self-consistent and perfectly exact, be not thou surprised. Rather, we should be content if we can furnish accounts that are inferior to none in likelihood. Okay, now why would he throw this in here? Well, I want us to focus on this first line. As being is to becoming, so is truth to belief. So there's an analogy, and we can write it like this. And for those of you not familiar with this format of writing analogies, it's basically showing this. The colons here are like is to, and the double colon is like a so. So as A is to B, so C is to D. And so we have here, being is to becoming as truth is to belief. So we can take this as two parts, and then we are able to manipulate this and make other valid analogies. And so just like in math, you basically, if you do the same thing to both sides, then it's valid. And so we can switch these two, make it becoming is to being, as belief is to truth. You can take the first terms and then the second terms, or do it backwards, do the second terms and then the first terms. If you start on this side for one half of the analogy, you got to start on this side for the other, and vice versa. So let's take the first terms and then the second terms, and then it will look like this. Being is to truth as becoming is to belief. And now we have something that's very much like what we saw in the Republic, that in the cave allegory, we saw that was the world of becoming, and that's also the realm of belief. Whereas when you go to the outer world, the absolute realities in the outer world are the only true objects of knowledge. And so here what he's saying in this quote is that he's talking about the world of generation, the world inside the cave. How did it get formed? And so he is staying within the realm of belief and also giving accounts. It's always talking. You're not touching the absolute realities. We're just talking about them. So we're still in the cave, and that's why the best he can do is give us likelihoods. Okay, going back though to his narrative, he says, let us now state the cause wherefore he that constructed it constructed becoming and the all. He was good, and in him that is good, no envy arises ever concerning anything. So here the idea of goodness being brought in. And being devoid of envy, he desired that all should be, so far as possible, like unto himself. This principle, then, we shall be wholly right in accepting from people of wisdom as being above all the supreme originating principle of becoming in the cosmos. So yes, we are looking at the similitude that runs through all the realms of reality. But what Plato is pointing out here is that this similitude is rooted in providence. It's rooted in goodness. The first cause of all is often called the good in Platonism. And this is why it is the supreme originating principle of the entire unfolding of reality. For him who is most good, it neither was nor is permissible to perform any action save what is most fair, beautiful. I put beautiful in brackets here because fair can also mean just, or justice, and justice is an important concept in Platonism, but the Greek here is beautiful. Okay, so we're focusing on what is most beautiful. As he reflected, therefore, he perceived that of such creatures as are by nature visible, none that is irrational will be more beautiful, comparing wholes with wholes, than the rational. And further, that nous cannot possibly belong to any apart from soul. So now we're going to see a little bit more of that unfolding of reality. Because of this reflection, he constructed reason within soul and soul within body as he fashioned the all, so that the work he was executing might be of its nature most beautiful and most good. So we have these two realms here. The intelligible realm we often call being, or the ever-existent. Intellect is a lower realm that is still divine. And this is like Zeus looking up to that model of the absolute realities. And then we see that he put reason within soul and soul within body. And so that unfolding of reality is continuing down. And then he's going to wrap up this section of the dialogue with this important line right here. Thus, in accordance with the likely account, we must declare that this cosmos has verily come into existence as a living creature, endowed with soul and reason, as we saw on the last slide, owing to the providence of God. So all of it again is guided by providence, and we're going to see the same theme continue as we go on with creation next week and the weeks to come. So if you have any questions so far, feel free to leave a comment below or drop me an email. Also, if you like what you're seeing, I do hope you'll think about subscribing, because I do put out a new video each week and you'll get a notification. Also, you may want to share with your friends, and also if you hit the like button, it lets other people know that you enjoyed this video, and it also helps the algorithm somehow, so I'd appreciate that. So next week we're going to go on with creation, and I do hope you'll join me then. Thank you.